What's up, guys? Hey, it's Clint Coons here. And in this episode, I wanted to go completely off script, talk about something that is so different than what we normally do here on my channel with asset protection, tax planning, and talking about various ways of house hacking or whatever strategies we're discussing as far as investing goes. I wanted to bring you someone who we've been working with for a few years now. He's a client and talk about the journey, because many of you, when you get started in real estate investing, and I hear this over and over again, or I see comments about it. Hey, how did you get there, Clint? I know you need asset protection, but you got to have assets to protect. And this just, I'm not finding opportunities in my state, and there's always those challenges that we throw up for ourselves. And I wanted to bring someone on who has worked through these challenges and has started at the ground level with nothing and built up his investing now into multifamilies and syndications, and just explain to you what that journey was like for him, and how the market looks right now, and what he did. So you can glean some insight out of it, things that you should be focusing on putting your teams together, and how you approach real estate investing. Because I can tell you that there is no greater path to wealth, to creating wealth actually for your future generations as well, than through real estate, in my experience and my opinion. So with that, I want to invite on Brett Hadley. Brett, how you doing?
Clint, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate you having me on today. Really looking forward to our discussion and getting through some of these items that you just talked about. So thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. I mean, and I know you're really busy with everything that you're doing, but your story's inspiring. And from where you started, I'd really like you to just kind of lay that backstory. Spend a few minutes here, just telling the audience, where you came from, and what it took to get to that place where you bought your first house.
Absolutely, Clint, and most importantly, I want to throw it out there at the very beginning is that made our first huge mistake coming out of the gates, not doing what you had preached and what you do on your channel here, and getting educated before you jump. And yes, we wanted to get in the game and be in the military aspect. I wanted to execute, get in the game and execute. And sometimes you make mistakes if you do that. If you don't get the education piece for first and foremost. So how does that impact where we were and where we came from? We jumped in. We said, hey, yeah, we'll go ahead and open that LLC, and we'll start our real estate journey down, and we did it. And we got on the website, and we made it happen. We opened it, and sure enough, in our military mastermind group, they'd educated me, and they kind of guided me towards your direction on the Anderson advisory aspect. And so I called Corey up, and they recommended that I'd get in touch with Corey because he's prior military, and the Marine he looked at me and laughed, of course, like Corey does, and he said, I'm going to educate the uneducated Air Force guy here. So thank you, Marine and Corey. So he educated me on asset protection, and what you do so well on all your education pieces out here on your YouTube channel. And so that was the first mistake that we made. And what did we learn from that is that the value of investing in yourself first and foremost. Let's be honest. Getting educated is extremely important, and that's what I try to do now, and help. And that's one of the biggest reasons I appreciate you having me on here today, is just giving the ability to give back to others. And so we started off our journey. My brother and I were business partners, badass brothers, and he is my best friend, and we'd grown up together in Wyoming, a small town, just oil and gas industry, and wanted to do and had that entrepreneur aspect and that spirit in us. So we went all the way through. I started active duty. I went down that path of getting educated, and you need to get educated, and you need to go get a good job, and down that pathway of what the normal aspect is before you read that purple book, if you will. And that's what we did. And I did that. And my brother went and got the good job of, doing a maintenance and commercial industry where you're in the mining industry in Southwest Wyoming, and it's a really good job, and we were going down that pathway of investing in your 401k. I love it, Clint. You do a lot of stuff on 401ks, and it's been an absolute blessing on that. So we did that, and sure enough, we were in 2019 came around, and my brother and I have been talking about it, and haven't jumped yet, and we've been getting educated, but not as much as we should. And we said, hey, a time has come, let's do it. And so we started that LLC by ourselves, and that's where the journey started in 2019. So it's been a journey, and so we said, hey, Corey, we're not going to make that mistake again. And you guys and your business advisory group helped guide us and lead us, and helped establish that protection that we need in order to grow. And in order to grow, you got to have assets, right? And so
Exactly.
that's where our military accelerator, it's a service academy business mastermind group, came in. And I was like, hey, no better way to learn than to jump right in and do 6 months of hardcore, every single month, meeting twice a month, and going in and actually, executing deals with people that are just like you, like-minded, and ready to do deals. And that's exactly what I did, is jumped into Buddy Rushing's Accelerator. He does a phenomenal job with our veteran community, people that are ready to go and do it, what you just said, and what we all do now is invest. And so they're all around the world. That's what's awesome. Our investors are all around the world, and they're wanting to invest in operators that are local, that they can know, like, and trust. And so that's the incredible network that they have there. We were able to execute a vast amount of deals. And so when I jumped into the game, Clint, it was all about, hey, what is it that we need to do, Brett? Like, how do we need to help you out? And because we were already getting ready to execute some deals in Wyoming. And by deals, I say quadplexes, duplexes. We were into the deep value add aspect because my business partner, JJ, is an incredible hands-on, and he does a really good job. He was the maintenance guy out on a large industrial complex, and helping maintenance. That's what he does for a living. And so no better way to have an asset manager than JJ himself. And I'm on that business aspect side of it. So we were looking at deep value added properties where we can do conversions, and we'd take a duplex and convert it into a quadplex, and do that deep value add. And we didn't know the financing piece. So guess what? We were hey, buddy, I need your help. And we went through a creative financing aspect, and it was amazing because, and during that discussion, we were talking about seller financing. And I was like, hey, we have a motivated seller because she has to drive all the way from Colorado to manage her property, and she was pretty motivated. And at first, she said no. Well, a couple months later, she was having to drive in the snow of Colorado back to manage her property. She said yes after that. So we were able to do our first deal as a seller finance deal, a 5-plex out of Wyoming, and still have that property today. And it's an incredible property, doing really well for us. And then we moved right into like that conversion I was telling you about. Had a duplex and made it into a quadplex, and instantly added significant value to that property. And again, using a lot of those techniques that we had talked about in Buddy's Accelerator, and doing, asking the questions and being able to bounce those ideas off of everybody that was in there, and saying, hey, what are your thoughts about this? And ended up getting 11 units in Wyoming over the course of a year. And it was incredible. So we transition now, Clint, to what do we do now? Like, because we were at that 1 year point where, like, how do you scale, and how do you do that? And so that's where we're trying to find that next piece of the pie, and we'll go into how we do that next, if that's okay with you, Clint.
Yeah, I got a question for you. So when you got these 11 properties within 1 year, that seems like a ton for somebody that's just starting out, or they've only been investing in one property. How were you able to accomplish that? I mean, what would you say is necessary? So somebody that's listening in, watching this right now, and they're thinking, "There's no way I can do that." What would you say to that person?
Absolutely, Clint. And one thing I would want to stress most is that yeah, you can have the capital to execute a deal and go in and do what you said is start small. I've always had my mentors tell me you want to start small. You don't go into the weight room and bench 300 pounds right away. Like you go in there and you work up to it, right? And so that's the most important thing that we got out of starting small. And is it everybody have to? No, you don't have to. But there's one. This is one way, and it was very successful for us is that we went in and we started small. We got our hands wet. We got our feet dirty, and we literally had to asset manage. We had to property manage, and we were like, oh man, this isn't why we got into real estate. And so that's one of the big things I would like to stress is that you want to do it though. You want to get in there and and understand what it takes to manage the assets that you're going to manage at a much larger level. Real estate's real estate, and I know I've heard you say that in many of your podcasts. Is hey, it doesn't matter. It just adds a few zeros onto it, right? But if you understand the basics and the foundations, you can build the house. And so that's what we wanted to make sure that we understood. And it was painful. It is painful being a property management. I salute them property management groups that manage our properties now because they are awesome. They're incredible people, and they are what makes our asset function, and they're the ones that have the return on the investment, right? So, Clint, that's the one thing I would want to stress the most is that yes, you can do it. You have capital. You got your 401k. There's ways of getting capital that is yours, and you can make it happen. And that's what we did. We consolidated as much as we possibly can, but you run out of capital, right? That's
Mhm.
you can't scale. You can only scale as large as your portfolio has, right? And that's where we ended up having, and because we were tapping into our 401ks, we were tapping in at any way that we could because we were going to make this happen. And then as you get traction, as you gain traction, and you start gaining people's the piece that we should have started at first started to happen when we started gaining traction, and it's people seeing the results of our hard labor and our hard work, and they're starting to see, wow, how are they doing what you just said, Clint? How are they getting property after property? Well, it's people starting to understand that hey, we had my father, saying, hey, this I don't think this is a smart idea. This is not good. Like really doing this real estate stuff, you got to toilets, toilets and tenants and termites. Like, why would you want to do that? And that's okay, and that's fine. And he was like, you guys aren't. I don't know if you guys are gonna make it. Well, he came around full circle, and now he's an investor in our work now, and he loves it, and he's getting into it, and he's getting ready to retire, and he's going to jump in as well. And so that's the absolutely the best thing that's happened is to be able to turn minds, people that wasn't on board, and then being able to show them the results that come from hard work and dedication and the ability to execute, like you said, first and foremost, is sometimes people get on the edge. And that's one of the big things that Buddy and the Accelerator, when you get around people that are like-minded and are, they're highly motivated, that's what you want to surround yourself. And that's one of the most important things that's happened in our business is that you surround yourself with people who are executing at a much higher level than you. And then you actually change your mindset. You get a mindset shift, and that's exactly what happened with us, Clint.
Yeah, so that's I think is really important. Something I just pulled out of that is as you start to go along this journey, you start to find success, people are going to notice. Your friends are going to notice. Your family's going to notice. And at first, I mean, I still get this to this day from my father. Say you're nothing but a blank damn fool. You're going to do that. You don't listen. And I said, Dad, you've been doing this to me since I started this business, and look where it's at. But you know it's this transition. You're going to hear that from family members, from people that you're close to, and you can't let that stop you from following your life's dreams and getting out there and actually doing something. But then there's going to be those people that see that success, and I have this now all the time. Hey, can you help me get a property? You got a deal that I can invest with you on, joint venture with you on, and so why is that? Because I don't tell them how much I'm making, but they notice. Things have changed in your life. Maybe you get a little nicer house, or you're driving you got a new boat or a new car, and they're wondering, wow, I know he's been doing real estate, but things must be going pretty good. So that then becomes, like you said, I think for a lot of people, they don't realize is that that's the money, that helps propel that business going forwards. You got any different takes on that, or you
No,
agree?
absolutely, Clint. You nailed it, and that's exactly what we experienced, and that's one of the biggest things that we experienced with JJ. Because my business partner was obviously in a very, like I said, he was in a very good job in Wyoming, and it's one of the best jobs you can get. And he stepped away, and when he was like, wait, and people were like, what? If you're doing that well, then there's got to be something you is going right. And so that opened up a lot of eyes, because he was like, hey, I'm stepping away doing this full time. And that's exactly what happened. And now what was awesome about that is then we could send them your way, and we had a lot of them coming your way, listening to your videos, and hey, getting educated on how do I take my 401, because there's a lot of 401ks and it's $1 trillion business, and there's a lot of money out there, and they just didn't even know they could do it. And that's what the eye-opening piece of it, Clint, has been incredible, because you get to see the people that are hardworking individuals, and then you start to educate them. And JJ's done a phenomenal job in the hometown to hold up meetups and educate them and help them understand that, hey, it is possible to take your 401k and utilize it towards an alternative, this type of investing, because they didn't know they could invest in apartment complexes. They didn't know they could invest in a short-term rental on the beach in Jacksonville. And it's like, hey, yeah, you can be a part owner of that. Absolutely. And then you start educating them there, start getting excited. And then the wildfire happens, because then they go talk to their friends. And pretty soon the branding and the marketing happens by itself. And that's been incredible. So Clint, absolutely. You nailed it right there. And as far as like my side goes, when I'm going on to these 8 o'clock Saturday morning calls with a lot of my veteran community, and they're all war room, and they're all getting ready to retire, and they're just like, I don't know what I want to do when I get done. And we all have that service mentality. And what better way to do it than to understand that you can get into this business, and it's all about the team, right? Like, you can get into a syndication and you don't have to be the expert, but you can be an expert in one thing, and you can be a part of the GP team. And helping them understand that piece of the pie, Clint, has been incredible. And you see the eye opening, and you see the success that people are having out there in the veteran community and in the community of back home where my brother is from, and seeing that, hey, we can own a piece of the short-term rental. We went into a JV just recently, a couple weeks ago, with a guy in Wyoming, and he's just ecstatic, and his family's ecstatic, and that's what's awesome. You're actually impacting lives. I love it.
Yeah, and the thing about it, and you and I talked about this, Buddy and I talked about it last week, and that is, people see themselves many times, if they're going to invest in real estate, as just an investor. Someone's going to come in and buy someone else's house, and they don't understand the other side of you investing. That if you really want to find these deals, because what you said about finding that person in Colorado and getting her to sell or finance you the property, a lot of people say those don't exist. They exist. They just don't exist where you're looking. You have to change where you're looking, and you have to change the way you approach things. That you're not just approaching someone saying, I want to buy your house. You're finding out what their problem is. You're identifying their problem, and then you're solving that problem. And I think that is a fundamental roadblock for a lot of people who invest. They don't understand that you're not just about going out there and saying, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to find these sellers. No, find the people who don't necessarily know that they want to sell yet, and say, expose the problems that they've been talking about at their kitchen table, their spouse has been complaining about, and saying, listen, I can solve that for you. And here's how we're going to do it, and show them. And that's where those opportunities start coming from.
Yes, sir. And like you said, and as long as you surround yourself with those people that have that kind of mindset, that's what it's all about. And that's exactly what my brother and I, recently did when we joined the Sumrok group here in local Dallas area. He is called the apartment king of all of Dallas, because his group is well known. And why not surround yourself with people who are doing thousands of doors a year, and getting educated from these people, and always being in those circles that you just talked about, Clint. Like, if you can't do what you're doing in the circles that you're in, maybe you need to step up a level. And that's exactly what you have to do in order to be able to produce the results that you want. And that's what I love about what we've done and that pivot that we've done. Because then you start, running into people that you have, like, but one of Buddy's graduates, is now one of my partners, and he jumps out of airplanes with Buddy. Greg Butcher's a 20-year Marine, and he was my experience on my last deal, and has multiple syndications under his belt and multiple ones that's gone full cycle. And so that's what's awesome is you bring those type of people that know, like, and trust you because of the circles that you are in, and then everybody rises to the top because guess what? Now he's got extra deal, and he's got people like myself that are willing and able, and like my business partner whose full-time job is to asset manage now. So what greater way to make his portfolio grow faster than to get with people that are ready to do it and ready to execute. So yes, Clint, I think it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah. So to that point, what we're referring to is find people who know more than you, and then they'll help you along the way. Like, for example, I assume that first property you did with that Colorado investor, what was her problem? Driving all the way over, trying to manage a property out of state. So if you target those types of people, figure out what their challenges are in managing real estate out of state, then show them a way in which you can alleviate that issue. Because what they're expecting is a return. That's why they have that rental property, but it comes with headaches. So if you can say, hey, let me show you a way in which I can get you X amount of income a year from this property. Because, another challenge somebody has is they don't want to sell. They're tired of it, but they don't want to sell because they're going to have to pay tax on that money when they sell. And then the other issue is, where are you going to put the money? Right? If I gave you $200,000 tomorrow and you sold a piece of property, where do you invest it? In the stock market? No, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to find another property out there. So you have to figure out ways to address those issues. And people who've been doing this for a while, if you surround yourself with them, they can show you. I had a client in here last week, a service member that's at Joint Base, and he's just getting started. And he wanted to pick my brain. He's a platinum client. I sat down with him and I said, okay, because it wasn't about asset protection. I said, this is how you need to approach people. Here's who I would identify, and then look at it from this perspective and find out what those issues are, and then show them, lay it all out. Hey, this is what I can do for you, and this is what the benefits that are going to come from this strategy, and those deals will start happening. And so you've been doing that, and it helped then take you from the single families and the duplexes into the multifamily. And so what was that transition like, to go from, because that's a big leap for people.
Absolutely, Clint, and it's kind of scary, to be honest with you. Like, signing on a $7 million loan is kind of difficult sometimes if it's your first
Right?
rodeo. Um, but you surround yourself with the Greg Butchers that have done that multiple times, and those are the folks that are, hey, they walk you through. They're by your side. They're not going to do all of the dirty work. That's us. He's just there to be a mentor, and that's exactly where I want to be, and that's where we will be. Is exactly where he's at. And so the next step is now being able to take what we've learned and do more deals and get to become the expert at what we're doing. And because we feel very comfortable now in the multifamily space, but until you've got a track record, you can't become a Greg Butcher. And that's what the most important thing is that we're building that right now. And we have brokers now, that deal flow that we always talk about. I just like to look at real estate in two different avenues, and that's what I'd love for your audience to know is I like to look at it as, hey, you got to find the deal, and B, you got to find investors. And that's how the syndication world works. Obviously, there's mechanics that go into that, but that's stuff that you can learn. That's the stuff you can get in your teeth sunk into, and you can do it yourself, and actually get educated on those pieces of it. That's fine, but those are the two pieces. It makes it simple, right? And so my brother is on that piece of it, is the one that runs the mechanics. He's the operations guy, and he loves it, but he doesn't like he doesn't like the investor relations and having to, that's mine. I love that. I love that aspect of it, and getting people excited and educating people about what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. And that's where that's the yin and the yang, if you will. It's just an incredible, complementary skill set that you can bring. And that's the most important thing that I can stress to your audience is that partnership. It's a marriage, and so be careful on who you partner with. And that's why I was so excited to be partnering with someone I know, I can trust 100%, because I know the type of person this individual is. And that's why we've gone into a partnership together. And that's one of the big things I've seen on multiple groups that we've been a part of. They get into bad partnerships, and they can tell you that's one of the biggest mistakes that they make. Hey, it's and some of these deals, 5, 7 year deals, 3 to 5 years at least, you're in a marriage and you got to make that work. And so that's one of the things I would like to your audience to know is when you're getting into that partnership, make sure you're taking the time. And the most important piece of the pie is making sure you're building that team, that partnership, to take down these deals, these multifamily deals that we're talking about here.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to cut a video on that. I've cut a few on joint ventures, but that's an upcoming video I'm going to have where I'm discussing not just the LLC structure, but that partnership aspect of how key that is to find success. And so, with your deals, now when you're into the multifamily, how did you start identifying properties? Because that seems so daunting. People think mentally from a single family to a multifamily that you're dealing with a whole other set of cards, a different deck you're playing now. It, is that your experience, or you got a little different take on that?
No, absolutely, Clint. And by a whole deck of cards, I would like to say that it was a completely new deck. Absolutely. And it's a whole nother different world that you're jumping into. At the same time, I want to take it back, to what we were talking about earlier. It's just a little bit bigger property. When it comes down to it, it's just a little bit bigger property. But you have to know the little pieces of the pie that you have to know in order to be, at the table, sitting at the table for a broker to know, like, and trust you. That's what the most important thing is. And when you're brand new to the game, how do you do that? Well, the answer is you get experience on your team and you utilize it's a we because it's a team effort, right? So you get experience on your team of people who have done it and been there and closed deals, and that's exactly what our broker does. Our broker is amazing. It's Old Capital here locally, and that's exactly what Paul Peoples tells us is. And that's what he told JJ and I when he sat down with us at Starbucks. He sits at me next to me at church. By the way, he still goes to the same parish as I do, and he's just incredible because he told us straight up, you've got to have somebody with experience. If you want to close a 100-unit deal, you better have experience with somebody who has a 100-unit experience. And not only that, if you can find somebody that has that full cycle deal where they go 5 years and they can show that they've executed their business plan, what they said they were going to do, now it's even talking even more. And so as you gain more experience and you gain an actual track record, brokers start calling you. Like, we have no problem with deal flow anymore. Like, because that's where the brokers understand that, hey, it's a surety of close. Like, we know that you're going to close because you're a part of this group as well. And being associated with the Sumrok group, it makes you, puts you in a little different stack. And so when we're going out and doing these bus tours around Dallas, seeing off market and on market deals, of people who are selling it from the Sumrok group, and I know these people, and the one that we just bought was a firefighter for 23 years in the fire district here, and I knew him personally, and I knew it, we were buying it from him. So that's just the benefit of being in a network of individuals that that are doing what you're doing, because you have the ability to have the buyer brokers that have relationships with all the brokers that are here local. And guess what? When they see a Sumrok team, they know that they're going to execute, and they give us I wouldn't say preferential treatment. Behind the scenes, whatever it is, they do what it is, whatever business is done, and guess what? They know that you're able to execute. So when you get to the final, best and final, it's because of that. And having that relationship built with the brokers that you have all around this area, you might as well join the group that is doing a lot of deals, and they're doing it effectively.
Yeah. So what I heard from you there is that if I'm an investor and I've been doing single family, I want to move into multifamily. I should find someone that has some experience. And that means possibly giving up some of the upside or some of the ownership, because their contribution to your deal, the ability to get funding, to know who to talk to if it's dealing with the city or the county or whatever it is, those are what's going to get that over the finish line for you, because you're going to stumble if you haven't been through it. And I tell people this so often when they talk about, how do I start investing in multifamily? I said, find somebody that's already been doing it and find the deal and get with them first, and then see if they're open to it. And if you start building your team that way, so when you go in, you can execute. Because I think the biggest mistake people make is they go out there and they find a great deal and they can't execute.
No, 100%. And being able to know that you're going to get to the finish line is extremely important. And like you said, I know groups that do nothing but this, and they take people and they pretty much spoon feed them along the way. But like you said, it's going to take. You need to be able to know that it's going to cost you, and it may cost you a lot of equity your first deal, because it's the law of the first deal. Michael Blanc says it really well. Like that's your first and hardest one, is that first deal, because it is. There's a lot of learning that goes on in that first deal. So you're going to have to cut your teeth. You're going to have to get that person, and you're going to have to in order to get that person, you might have to give them a hell of a lot more equity, and know that the experience that they have is something, and that they need to be compensated for it, right? And that's exactly what I would preach to all of the folks that are wanting to get into the multifamily space, is that piece right there. Know that you're going to be paying for it on your first deal, but it's getting you in the game, and it's getting you to the finish line, like you said, Clint.
So what do you see as in this market right now? What do you say for multifamily? What are you looking at? What would you recommend?
Oh man, I wish I had that crystal ball, Clint. um, no, absolutely, and like I said, this is a big talk in our Sumrok group, and it is, and it's there's going to be a correction. We know that. It's just a matter of when, but it's a ways off for now, especially in markets like this. And that's what I would highly recommend. I'm no advisor, but at the same time, what we're hearing in our mastermind groups is exactly that. Like, find an area that has the tailwinds, and it's going to be a competitive environment. That's the key. And a lot of the folks that are investing, if you're an outside investor of the DFW area, they're not even looking at this area, because they're like, wow, the cap rates are too low, and there's no way that you're going to get your money, your returns on those. Well, that's not necessarily true. And because of the growth, and because of the businesses that are moving here, from the West Coast, I know you're up in Seattle, but the California move here, and you can see it from the U-Haul statistics and all of that. Like, it is unbelievable how many people are moving into the state of Texas, and being a part of the utility business, like, we see it, and having to provide electricity for that, all the people that are moving here, and we see it. It's growing fast. And so the workforce housing is going to be here for a while, and that's the most important thing that I can stress on the people that are just jumping into the game, that want to reduce the risk and have that mitigation of risk, is that, hey, find the properties that are the A or the B and C class properties that have the value add, that you can push a lot of equity into. And that's where the properties that we focus on. We love it when we go into a property that's had a lot of deferred maintenance, or things that have vast improvements to, because guess what? We know that we can push that into it, and the value that we can put into it. And then you got to do your due diligence around the market that you're getting into. But I think everybody on your podcast are educated on where the market trends are, and the Nashvilles, the DFWs. We're invested in the Jacksonville area heavily, and so those are the markets that are our primary focus. But as we look forward, Clint, I think we're definitely going to do more deals here in the DFW area, in the Jacksonville area, and primary markets that have that tailwinds for sure. And we're not slowing down.
Yeah, I know. And just on a personal side, the way I look at too is that when you find an area to invest, and when there's uncertainty as far as if they're going to stay or they're going to turn against you, as far as values go, First off, those loans are typically be 5-year loans. So you have 5 years before they're going to reset and you're going to have to go back in. And what I've always looked for, because after what I saw happen in 2008, is I'm looking, like you said, you're looking for things where it's value add, that the loan to the value, ARV value, is not going to be out of whack, and that the rents support the debt. And as long as those kind of align, because if we do go through a minor recession like they've been talking about now, your rents, if people start losing homes and things like that, your rents will actually go up because they need places to live. And you brought that up with housing having to come into the market, workforce housing. Those are all positive signs that can actually work in your favor, even though sometimes counterintuitively we think, oh, if people lose homes, then we're going to lose money as well. No, they become your next renter.
Absolutely.
Hey, if
Absolutely.
somebody wants to get in touch with you, do you mind sharing any information if they wanted to reach out? Is that something you do? Do you do any?
No, absolutely, Clint. Like I said, the most important thing, like if you would want them to, especially your veteran community, that
Mhm.
if you're talking to somebody that needs expertise or needs experience, the War Room is where I would send them on your veteran community. The War Room
Great.
is an incredible resource out there, and Stu and David does a great job, and that's the one that I go on every Saturday morning. If you want to get in touch with me with our group, that's one of the best ways to do it. And again, if you want to get in touch with us from a multifamily perspective and invest in some of the properties that we have coming down the pipeline, we'd love to have get on the call and talk with some of your individuals as well. They can get on our site. Our website's probably the best. That's www.babinvestments.org, and that's probably the easiest way because all of our contact information is on there. Our investing club is on there, so they can see all the properties we've done and what our kind of focus is. So, Clint, the most important thing that we're going to focus on, and the biggest mistake that we made, and I want your audience to know this, is the most important part of business is marketing and branding, and we didn't do that up front, and so we should have started that from day one. And I highly recommend the individuals that are getting into the game to be doing just that in that drip campaign and just getting investors to understand what you're doing and being out there a part of the community, telling people what you want to do and where you want to be. And that's the most important thing we didn't do up front, Clint, and I would love to have people know that that's something that needs to happen first. So, in any case, that's probably the best way to get us in, Clint. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the podcast today, and appreciate you having us.
Brett, thanks for coming on. Take care.